Up and Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up and Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Happy Monday. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, for connecting. Beginning your week. Thanks for being Up and Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. So there was a scene in the 90s that wasn't about radio hits or chart toppers. It was about something far more wilder, freer, and a lot harder to explain. It lived on the road. It moved in caravans. It had its own language, its own rules, and even its own kind of spirituality. And it pulled in thousands, not because they wanted to be fans, but because they wanted to belong to something. Sharing in the groove isn't just a story of jam bands we're going to get into. It's the story really of a movement that made music feel like home. Later in the show, we're going to be joined by author, journalist Mike Ayers. You track down the roadies, the weirdos, the promoters, and the stars, even the diehards, who built one of the most misunderstood and wildly alive subcultures beginning in the 90s, still going on now. From mind-altering nights to code-breaking drug etiquette, we're going deep into the secret history of a world that still is echoing today, the jam band scene. Even if you've never followed a band, this is going to be a conversation you're going to want to check out, especially with all the chat about the way things were in the 90s when this all popped off. All right, a couple quick hits. One, everyone knows this. I made a joke about it in front of some strangers yesterday, and everyone knows. The kiss cam, the CEO, the affair, right, the whole thing. Well, despite what the internet has been suggesting all weekend, Coldplay takes no glee in destroying relationships, and they're trying to make sure that never happens again. During the show over the weekend in Madison, Wisconsin, Chris Martin actually warned the audience before they did the kiss cam. It was really their first show since they outed that tech CEO, Andy Byron, and his mistress, his head of HR, nonetheless. I think I have a little audio. Check it out.
We'd like to say hello to some of you in the crowd. How we're going to do that is we're going to use our cameras and put some of you on the big screen. So please, if you haven't done your makeup, do your makeup now.
I love that. Big heads up. So the fan who posted the footage tweeted a little bit later and said that they didn't actually show any couples. So pretty funny. They're really kind of steering clear from that. On an official note, Byron has officially resigned from his company, Astronomer. He still hasn't made a statement about this whole mess. I guess there were a couple statements that was going around that were not true. The company has made a statement, but just he's not the CEO anymore. I wonder, is she going to keep her job, though? Should she keep her job? Head of HR? I don't know. Whole thing is wild, though. I mean, absolutely. Has anything gone more viral than that recently in the last 10 years? I don't know. Wow. All right. Also, a little travel story here. Maybe the DMV should take note. TSA continuing to make changes to make us all, hate them a little less, get through things, right? We're all in this together. 2 weeks after the TSA nixed their shoes off policy. Good news. They announced that they're adding dedicated family lanes at security checkpoints. They're now only available at a few airports to start, including Orlando, Charlotte Douglas International, Daniel K, Inui International in Hawaii, and the John Wayne Airport in Orange County. More are going to be added soon in the coming months. The TSA says the new family lanes are supposed to help mitigate the unique challenges families face when they're traveling and minimize stress while maintaining the highest level of security. This is one of those rare win-wins where parents don't have to worry so much about holding up the line and everyone else doesn't have to worry so much about families holding up the line. So this is kind of cool. They'll also offer discounted TSA pre-check rates for families, $15 off. And I guess they've added honor lanes for the military community. That's great. They're already available at 11 airports. They're expanding that nationwide. So really great news. I got summer travel. We're in the thick of it right now. So, all right. What do you say? Get into our chat with the one and only Mike Ayers, author. Going to be a really fun conversation. Looking forward to it. All right. First, let me tell you about the Creston Bloody Mary battle. If you love a good Bloody Mary, and I mean really love one, you're not just looking for an excuse to call vodka breakfast. You really love a good Bloody Mary, then the city of Creston is calling your name. Saturday, August 23rd, I'll be out at the Creston Bloody Mary battle, serving as your MC, also a judge for one of the sauciest showdowns of the summer. We're talking decked out drinks, killer burritos, and yes, bovine bingo, where a cow decides your fate, apparently. I've never played bovine bingo. Can't wait. And no one does an event like this with the character like the town of Creston. This is going to be a lot of fun. Come thirsty, come hungry, and come ready to brag about it for a year. It is the Creston Bloody Mary battle. It all goes down at the Creston Rodeo Grounds. Every dollar supports the Creston Women's and Men's Clubs. Get your tickets now. Here's a website, CrestonBloodyMaryBattle.com. They got their own website. Damn. CrestonBloodyMaryBattle.com. I got links in the show notes. Brunch hard, brunch local, brunch like a legend. Hang out with us August 23rd. Love to see you there at the Creston Bloody Mary Battle. Add a .com to that. Check it out.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, this is a treat. Joining us today, a journalist and author. His name is Mike Ayers, whose new book, Sharing in the Groove, isn't just about jam bands. It's about a moment in time when music became a lifestyle. And you think of all the stuff about the 90s, a compass, even a kind of religion for a certain type of person. Mike spent years collecting stories from the roadies, the freaks, the stars, and the strangers who built this thing from the ground up, this jam band scene. And even if you've never really been into this kind of music, the jam band scene, or bands like Phish or whatever, if you've ever been fascinated by how subcultures form right around you and how a fringe movement accidentally shaped things like music festivals that we have now, touring culture, even the rules of the music biz, this is your episode. Really interesting chat. Mike Ayers, thanks so much for being up and at 'em.
Thanks, Adam. It's great to meet you.
All right, so how much of this story is really about the bands? And then how much of it is about the culture that kind of rose up around them, the fans, the philosophy, the people, the way people started living differently because of the music? What was that moment where it was like, okay, it's not even so much a music book anymore. This is a movement.
This is a movement. I mean, I lived this back then, and you could tell it was a movement, especially if you go to a show and, there's 20,000 people following from show to show to show, right? And no one is getting any sort of MTV play. They're not the top of Billboard charts. They're not, on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine every month. But 20,000 people keep showing up. Like there's something there, right? And to this day, it's still happening. So, 30 years on, a movement is still certainly happening. And I think movements slow down. They, come to a halt sometimes, but this thing has kept going. Look at the Grateful Dead. Like they're, the offshoot Dead and Company is playing 3 nights in a few weeks in San Francisco, Golden Gate Park. And I don't know, 50, 60,000 people are gonna go.
Right.
And some of the acts that are in this band are opening acts.
I mean, these bands, they weren't really trying so much to be rock stars. They were just trying to out jam each other, outrun the business, maybe find the next dope burrito. But how did the scene maintain its integrity when record labels and MTV came coming to the door knocking?
I mean, that's a great question. Some acts were certainly transformed. Spin Doctors started off in this jammy scene, and they were playing alongside Blues Traveler for forever. They were on this first tour called the Horde Tour, which was like a miniature Lollapalooza, but for jammy acts in 92. In 93, they had been everywhere on MTV at that point. and they headlined a tour called the MTV Alternative Nation Tour with the Screaming Trees and Soul Asylum. So, it's kind of like a little angel on your shoulder conundrum, right? It's like, do you want fans that are going to be with you to the day they die, or do you want a radio hit that could be fleeting? Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is, and that's like the kind of like the gamble or the dance that some musicians, some artists had to grapple with, and it changed things for some artists. Like Spin Doctors, they told me, their fans suddenly would show up, and there'd be like this, you know, 25, 30-year-old tie-dye dude had been partying in the parking lot the before the show, and then he'd be standing next to a show now with with a mom and her 10-year-olds, right? And like they were like, yeah, that killed our core fan base's vibe. And they didn't really want to keep down with that. Get down with that still. MTV, I don't talk about it that much in the book, but I do. But MTV was such a massive influence in the 90s. And in this culture, it almost was like a badge of honor to not get on MTV. You weren't overexposed, right? You didn't have the mom and the 10-year-olds coming because they saw it on MTV and were buying tickets. So it still could feel like your own, and this mass media takeover of your artist wasn't happening. Dave Matthews certainly had a hit on MTV. It helped propel them into way bigger venues. Blues Traveler as well. They were a big radio band with Hook. And so
it's interesting you say that, because I've been a big fan of the Spin Doctors, and I literally had, a question about that, because I love the way that you talk about them in the book, because in the early chapters, like you say, I mean, they were a part of that original NYC DNA, that jam DNA,
yeah.
right? But then, like you noted, they blew up. MTV, radio hits, platinum. I mean, 5 times platinum, the Kryptonite album. It was a dream, right? Or, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying, that sometimes that success, at least in that space, it comes with a price. In your eyes, were they a band that brought jam to the masses? Or maybe is it more kind of like what you said, the one that got lost in the room once the spotlight hit?
It's certainly the latter. They got lost in the room. And then the record label then started seeing, oh, this is how they talked, oh, you're moving 10 million units. Okay, so your next record needs to move, 20 million or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they started to pay attention and started to put like a lot of pressure on this band that they largely were not paying any attention to. And you have to wrestle with that. And their follow-up to that only air quotes sold 2 million albums. And that was considered a bomb back then, and would never be a bomb, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, but it did. It quote unquote bombed. And then they had to, certain acts had to essentially look inward. And if you're in your early 20s, and it's a tough thing to grapple with. And then on the flip side, you have a band like Phish, who had none of that, didn't care what the record label wanted to do, would do some press, but ultimately was like, we don't really care about that. The people are going to come whether or not we do that or not. So why would we do that? Okay. By 96, they were, packing a festival of just them in a remote town in upstate New York. And 70,000 people showed up for a weekend of just them playing, right? And no other act was doing that at the time. And no one was really paying attention either. like you can find like a little like MTV like clip on YouTube right now from that weekend, but ultimately like the country didn't pay didn't pay any attention to it,
Yeah.
right? They didn't pay attention to, the I think it was like it became like the fifth largest city in New York State that weekend with the amount of people that were there that
Wow.
descended on this town, Plattsburgh, New York. So, when you're seeing that happen, why would you want MTV's help? Why would you want to mess with that?
Yeah.
We did this.
Yeah, then there's this idea that jam bands that kind of lived on the fringe, right? But then the more you look at it, the more you realize the fringe became like the formula: merch drops, live bootlegs, the whole vibe economy of music festivals, all the feels. But that was what jam was doing. What parts of jam band culture, whether it was like the merch hustle or taping policies or the way tours were run, do you think quietly was slipping into the mainstream playbook?
100%. I mean, like, I don't know if you went to any of the Taylor Swift Eras tours,
I didn't get a chance to, but they looked insane.
they did look insane.
Yeah.
But, I took my daughter and, a big thing was, making friendship
Right.
bracelets with the songs, and you would trade them with just random fans. That's so 90s jam bandy. Like that mentality, that ethos of just like commonality and showing up and just being, we love this thing. Who are you? Let's trade. There's no money. It's not it's just like eye for an eye. Like that vibe was really potent with the Dead. It's became potent in this 90s scene and is still potent today in this scene, but also you do see it has trickled out into the other areas. And every artist at this point too is, I would say, very DIY with their merch, with their vinyl records, and how they interact with their fans and how they create for their fans. It's it's really amazing to see, to be honest. You know, it can be kind of depressing to, read stories about AI bands on Spotify, but it can also be very exhilarating to see all these different genres interact and make fandom what it is. And it's just people connect to that. People
Mhm.
love that stuff. They love feeling a part of a community. They love feeling a part of, an artist making it. That there's nothing like it.
Yeah. You write about the jam band scene like it was its own ecosystem. How would you describe the kind of people this scene attracted? And why do you think the jam band world became a home for even the beautifully weird and wildly devoted type fan?
Yeah, that is another great question. I mean, there's a great quote in the book from Dave Schools, who is the bassist for Widespread Panic. He actually lives out near you. And he said, "We were the alternative to the alternatives." So alternative rock was just exploding. And then you had these other younger acts that were more into the classic rock scene or into the Talking Heads, or maybe they liked REM, and like they just had like a ton of influences. And they just, went about creating things that I just don't think anybody had really heard. But none of them sounded like each other.
Mhm.
That's the thing. That like if you look at the artists in this book, it's not like you could line them up and be like, oh, they all sound derivative of each other. This is just, this is a derivative thing.
Yeah.
They're all completely different. And you had people that wanted the alternative to the alternatives. And at the end of the day, it was just like a couple questions. Could you play live? And was your ethos something that was experimental? That's it. So for these acts and for the fans that were super into these acts, it was, can you change things up and make me want to come back? And they do. And it's different. It's different every single time, and it remains different every single time. It's wild.
Yeah. In your reporting, I'm so curious because there's like this unspoken truth, right? The jam band scene didn't just invite you to watch it, it invited you to feel. And often people would use substances to kind of crack themselves open enough to really, get it. In your reporting, how much of this movement do you think was built on that shared experience of altered states? And how did that affect the sense of belonging people found, maybe even broader than just the scene?
Look, in the '90s, if you went to shows from these acts from the dead, uh, you know, substances were certainly a thing, and people people took them, and yeah, look, I you ask them, they would probably say, yeah, I connected to my friend X, and I connect to the music, and I have this memory. Um, for me, it's more like it doesn't really necessarily matter that what state you're actually in is the music speaking to you? Is the music, having a moment with who you like who you are? And um, that I think is probably more important to everybody in this day and age. I mean, look, there's going to be people at like every genre of music, every sporting event that have too much and don't know when don't know what is the appropriate ways to connect with the moment,
Right.
so to say. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just you know the question is, when you're leaving, do you feel connected? Do you feel connected to the sounds and the music that you heard? You feel connected to the people around you, how you got there. Like, look, I don't
Right.
know, like whatever.
I'm almost wondering, I'm so curious, in a sense, in this like sense of these scenes built on freedom, nonconformity, were there still codes, maybe spoken or unspoken, around substances? Was there a kind of hierarchy to the drugs that people used in the scene? Like psychedelics were seen as sacred, but something like maybe coke or harder stuff would be quietly frowned upon. Was it anything goes as long as you showed up for the music? Was there like little written codes like that?
I mean, I remember in the '90s that pot and psychedelics were largely like fine. Like, people were like okay with that. I mean, you do have to remember the context that this country was very anti that, and no states had it legal at all. So it's still all of it was very hush hush, okay, for natural reasons. But I guess I didn't personally witness any harder stuff. It certainly wasn't like '80s, like the '80s hard rock scene where
Right.
you hear of the stories of backstage blow all the time.
Yeah.
I personally didn't see any of that. But as decades have rolled on, and you know, cultural prescriptions on how we treat things has moved along, I think probably harder stuff certainly exists in these worlds and all the worlds. And
Yeah.
I've never seen it be like any sort of issue, but probably there is probably what you're saying, like a hierarchy. Like,
Yeah.
there is a stigma around, like, you know, shooting up. Like people just don't do that,
Right.
like in public.
You
So I don't know.
you wrote. I hope I have time. You wrote another book called One Last Song. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you a question about it if I could.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
Because this was a surprisingly uplifting book that got a lot of great fanfare. And what you did, you talked to, over a couple dozen musicians and asked them what one last song would be that they would ever hear, on Earth. What was a common thread? Perhaps was it nostalgia, loss, defiance, something else that you didn't expect? What did their choices reveal to you about music as a mirror for life, death, maybe everything in between?
Yeah. One of the big commonalities throughout was just like this coming of age moment, and how when you're a certain age in your life, you connect to art, you connect to creation, you connect to music in ways that you can't really do when you're a child. So we're talking like teens or early 20s. You start to hear things and I think different ways and see the world in different ways as well. And songs, to me, more than any other art form like film or TV or painting or whatever, these are things that you can listen to over and over and over and over again. And it's almost going to be a part of your being.
Yeah.
Because this coming of age moment, these coming of age years, they just mean so much to people, especially as they grow up.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, think about all the people that talk about, like, as they grow older, still talk about college, right?
Mm-hmm.
They support their college, they go to their college sports teams, whatever. But at the end of the day, that was like a finite period of their life. It was like 4 years. Okay. Music, I think, is the same way. And a lot of the artists in this book, in One Last Song, are citing songs that weaved into their being as a young songwriter, as a young human, that took hold of them, and it just like never let go.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. That book's awesome too. So, I'd love to chat with you again sometime, Mike. I really enjoyed the conversation. We'll put links in the show notes, of course, to both One Last Song, but also sharing in the groove. So thanks so much for being here, for your time, and for being up and at 'em, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. This was great.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
All right, you can find the book wherever you get your reads, and we've got all the links in the show notes, including how to follow Mike. Grab a copy, got that Amazon link there, so check it out. I want to thank my friends at Life Elements for being up and at 'em, and here's why I believe in them. I've seen what they do. I've walked in, and without hesitation, Martha's handing me some sample of something, rubbing something on my elbow, asking how I'm doing. When you're there, you feel it. They care. The creativity, the magic, and every product, it backs it up. Their bug spray, made with essential oils like cedarwood, lemongrass, citronella, totally safe for your skin, pets, the planet. The relief stick uses CBD, arnica, calendula, and these things work. Remember, Kurt on the show was talking about telling people you gotta set a timer for 15 minutes and then remember what the pain felt like. And oh yeah, well, I forgot about it because it's gone. In addition to their spot in Tasket area, you could shop their products at the Hive in AG, also the General Store in Paso. Of course, you can check them out, lifeelements.com. But pay them a visit, 7425 El Camino Real, back right corner of the plaza. But yeah, lifeelements.com. Use the promo code ADAM, ADAM. Save 15% off. This is what happens when good people make great things. Love my friends at Life Elements. Thank you so much, Moonshiner Collective, for being up and at 'em. Original music on the show called Start Again. Check them out, moonshinercollective.com. Stream them wherever you get your music. Thanks to our friends at Tamber Winery for the Lobro Studios at Tamber. Their tasting room, Arroyo Grande in the Village. You can also go to Tamber, T-I-M-B-R-E, tamberwinery.com. Thanks to you for rating, reviewing, subscribing to the show wherever you listen to it. Thank you for listening to it, for connecting with us here. It means a ton. I'm Adam Montiel. Till tomorrow, hope you have a great beginning to your week and a great day. Thanks for being up and at 'em.
Some say life is start again. We'll start again. Let's start again.